Hello everyone. So I'm back with our sessions on middle adulthood. So we had a look on the sensory motor functions that changes during our middle adulthood. So we had a look on the vision impairment, hearing impairment, sensory impairment of taste and olfactory system, the touch, pain, and the muscular impairments or the individual's ability to lose his muscle dexterity. So now moving on to systematic and as well as structural changes that takes place. So the heading goes like this: structural and systemic changes of an individual during his or her middle adulthood. So structural changes are very much evident to all of us. It's naturally seen, witnessed, right? So when you see somebody in their young ages and when you meet them thereafter after a long period of time during the middle adulthood, you can definitely make the difference. You definitely see this person was quite very young and pretty in his young adulthood or the early ages, when compared to now he has grown old. He has put on weight, his skin has damaged. So many things comes into picture then. So these are the things which are very much evident, that are the structural changes that takes place. So you could see that people skin are worn out, the texture has lost, the pigmentation comes into picture. You can see freckles on their faces, you can see the wrinkles around their eyes, you can see that they have lost their hair. And the loss of hair is all because of inability to replace the hair. And then the hair grows grey naturally, right? It's because the skin or the element of melanin is producing more. So when a melanin produces more, the hair turns grey, and the loss of hair also takes place. These things are very much physically evident to an individual's naked eye. So this is something which is pretty normally sensed when you interact with a man or a woman of middle adulthood. These things are quite evident. So you could also see that the skin loses its plasticity, elasticity is lost, there is no much flexibility remaining anymore. So with this, we are just saying that the person is aging, but this is just a physical system that you can see aging, but then there are something which is inside, systemic system. Something like when you refer to a CPU, right? When you refer to a CPU, there is if something goes wrong, then the monitor doesn't function. So everything is controlled, head of the computer, brain of the computer. So similarly, our body, the changes within our body also takes into account for a proper functioning of us as a human being. So we can also see that the bone loses its calcium content, or you can say that bone grows thinner, because the calcium is much absorbed during the middle adulthood rather than being replaced. Earlier our muscles are, the bone muscles are replaced. It's reconstructed, whereas when we grow old, this is not easily possible. So bones absorbs more calcium than replacing it. And this is seen more among women. Women are 2 times more at risk of suffering from the calcium problem, and this is because of the fat accumulation in the body. So when as we spoke about the fat accumulation in the last video, we were talking about the same thing, that fat is accumulated 20% in our body during our middle adulthood rather than the 10% which used to happen during adolescence. So there is a change in that. So body has more accumulation of fat rather than the other important necessary nutrition and vitamins for the body. So we also talk about the bone loss, where we had a consideration about the bone loss here. So with the mention of that, we need to know why this happens. So our lifestyle also plays a very important role in making us understand why we lose our bone mass or bone dexterity or ability of the strengthened bones. This is because this is all due to mostly because of the lifestyle factors. During our adolescence, the smoking, alcohol and unhealthy diet put us at the risk of losing the bone strength or the bone mass. This can be, you can prevent this only by regular exercise, aerobics and maintaining the healthy diet. This can be restored, but then if you maintain a very good diet and very good lifestyle during your adolescence, this will minimize your risk of bone loss. So I repeat again, this would minimize your risk of bone loss during your middle adulthood if you have a proper diet and very good lifestyle during your adolescent years. So not just this. So other than the bone density, bone mass, we also need to talk about the cardiovascular system. These things are much more evident. So you increase your lifestyle diseases. You are more open to diabetes, you're more open to hypertension, you're more open to cardiovascular diseases, your immunity system is at risk with all these lifestyle diseases. So we need to be more cautious and more careful during this point of our age. So the cardiovascular system is also a very important factor that is during the middle adulthood. And men are at more risk of cardiovascular arrest when compared to women. So during the 40s to 50s, most of the men are at the risk of cardiovascular arrest, and this could be very much greater by the time they reach the age of 60 years, and it is highly problematic during the age of 65. So we must be very careful and cautious during all our middle and early adulthood so that we can maintain a very good lifestyle and keep our heart at a proper functioning. So this is much more common in today's society due to various factors like health, lifestyle, and the way we carry ourselves, and the way we are being more lazy these days rather than being more active. So these things has contributed. We also have to look into the vital capacity, that is drop in the lungs air, respiratory functioning. That is where the lungs loses its ability to take in the more air and purify the oxygen and carbon dioxide, and then helps in the proper functioning. This is also very important. This reduces by 40% by the time we reach age of 60 years. So these things are somatic or systemic characteristics that changes during the middle adulthood. So we have looked into the structural changes as well as systemic changes that takes place during the middle adulthood. So now moving on to the sexuality and reproduction during the middle adulthood. So it's always, it's not always clear. We have no much information about this in our prior two stages. We were just looking at the social looking at those things in a social context. As we were talking about puberty, we were talking about the maturation of the sexual apparatus, and when we spoke of early adulthood, we were talking about in terms of relationships rather than the biologically how it changes and how that is causing a problem to an individual personally and into his relationship. So now it's time to talk about that. So we are very much you must be this term is not new to you. We have pretty much exposure to this term, menopause. So basically, let's begin with sexuality and then let's move on to menopause and myths about menopause, symptoms about menopause, and attitude of people towards menopause. This is one of the very important topic to be discussed in this session. So please listen to me very carefully, and please make sure you scientifically list out the points in your examination with very clear technical terms. So sexuality, it's not a hallmark of youth. So sexuality can never be restricted to the young age. So you cannot just say that sexuality is just the hallmark of youth or the young adulthood or the initial adulthood, and you cannot restrict people from their sexual orientation in their middle adulthood and the late adulthood. This is completely not a hallmark of youth. So any individual can work as per their desires of sex in a societal framework, though has to be mentioned very clearly again. So as we age, what happens is a woman slowly loses her ability to menstruate and ovulate on a regular basis, and she reaches a stage called menopause. And at the same time, men do reach a state of climacteric, which is his inability to produce more fertile sperms. So basically, women's ability to menstruate and ovulate is cessated. It is put to a halt at one particular age, and whereas men's ability to produce or his fertility might not be that, you cannot say that it has reached its climacteric state forever. However, it can go till the end of his life, but then there is a point in his life where it halts to a certain extent. There is a halt and the fertility is reduced. So you could think of not producing the young ones. So basically, the sexuality that is hindered during this point of time is focusing on both sex, that is men and women's ability diminishes to reproduce their young ones. This is basically how an individual sexuality functions during his or her middle adulthood. So moving on to menopause particularly, so then we'll look into a climacteric in men. First, menopause. So menopause takes place when a woman permanently stops reproducing her young ones, and when she stops producing the when she stops ovulating, as well as when she is not able to menstruate on a regular basis. This is considered to be a menopause only a year after a last menstrual cycle or last menstrual period has taken place. So with that, you have a pretty much idea now. About 4 out of 5 women reach their menopause by the age 45 to 55. On an average, women in the world reach the stage of menopause at the age